Welcome back to Keep It Hoop, guys. And for the third day in a row, we will be talking about, you guessed it, the Brooklyn Nets. First with the Kyrie news, and now the blockbuster trade with Harden. There's been a lot going on and a lot to talk about, right? But with three superstars now and some of the greatest offensive talents we've ever seen, I wanted to do a video and take a look at some of the plays that the Nets have run and that the Rockets have run in the past to see how Steve Nash, who's the coach, and Mike D'Antoni, who don't forget part of that coaching staff for the Nets, and he's going to be reunited with Harden, how they can use the stars in their offense and maybe some of the shots they can get. Before we get started, though, if you could subscribe, like, share, and comment, it'd mean a lot. We've been getting views in the hundreds and thousands for some of our videos, so greatly appreciate that. But we are a little bit low in the subscriber count, so we're trying to get that up and work on that. But yeah, so we'll start with some of the Nets plays. This is a game from earlier this season against the Washington Wizards. As we let this run, this is going to be a handoff pick and roll with DeAndre Jordan and Kyrie. Right, and as DeAndre is rolling, and I want to point this out and say, ideally, I think I would have this being James Harden, just because Harden's a better passer, and I think Kyrie would be a little bit more willing slash just a better player at playing off the ball. I think he'd be a little bit more willing to take the catch and shoot threes, and we've seen him operate without the ball when it's with his time in Cleveland with LeBron. And if that's James Harden at the top of the key, then this will be Kyrie, right? So Russ is a really difficult option here, right, as the help defender. You don't want to give up open threes, but you never want to give up an open dunk either. So he's still kind of sliding there. Ideally, Denny here on the help defense comes down even further, so Russ doesn't, um, and then he can stay here, right? But you stopping the dunk is still priority number one. Dunks are going to be 99% shots, where an open three is 45, 50%. So Russ is a little bit late coming out here, and you can already just look at the spacing, right? If this is Kyrie can shoot the wide open three. Kyrie's a better shooter or a better player overall, right, than TLC. And even if Kyrie turns the shot down, depending on how hard Russ closes out, Kyrie can drive by and then he can go for his floater or dump it down to DJ. You could play, 2v1 if he can get past Russ here. Um, Even if, again, Denny plays good defenses out quicker here, you can always just swing it here because you still have KD who's wide open thanks to the Joe Harris down screen. And then even if you take that to the next step, if then Rui comes out and is able to stop KD from shooting it, then here Joe Harris can kind of slip the screen, pop out for a wide open three. So this right here that the Nets, is off of a simple pick and roll with Kyrie and DeAndre Jordan. It's a good offensive play. You have options and they got, but you add a guy like James Harden, and let's say you again move Kyrie to the corner, it just makes what's already a good offense, right? The Nets offense has been good this year. What's already a good offense, and then just takes it to the next level, a truly elite offense. And again, there's simple action, and you get so much movement and so many options, and a lot of weapons for Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni to play with. So Kyrie on this one is going to be able to get to the rack using a pick and roll with or pick and pop with Kevin Durant, right? So he's at the rim, and again, look at the options he has. He has DeAndre Jordan right under. He can drop it off to him, and then you have Joe Harris in the corner, who's a great 3-point shooter, and then you have TLC here. Let's say again, this is Harden, right? So what are some of the things they can do off of this? Well, Kyrie still has the option to go up with it again and then drop it off to DeAndre if he wants, and then the corner three, right? And then we see again the difficult decisions that the defense has to make. Rui Hachimura has to either come down and stop the dunk, which in this play he ends up not being able to do, or he has to stop the Joe Harris corner three. Well, given this position, right, and again, they end up getting a dunk off of this to DJ, but let's say that that's not there, so you can get it out to Joe Harris, right? Well, even if Denny, again, he's a little bit late here, he should be going down to help there, and then you just trust the rotations. Even if Kyrie gets it to Joe Harris and Denny plays good defense, then Joe can just swing it, right? You can just swing it to James Harden. And in this case, then probably Bradley Beal goes out and sprints out to James Harden. If the pass is quick enough, James Harden can then shoot a wide open three, or he gets to use his supreme talents. He can drive right at Bradley Beal, who's sprinting out at him, right? So not an easy, task to do if you're Bradley Beal trying to stop Harden. Or, and I know this is late in the shot clock, but let's say they have a bit more time. Even if the Wizards somehow play perfect defense, they rotate, you have your insurance right here, your trump card. You give it to KD, who has a mismatch, Raul Neto on him from the initial defense or the initial play when Kyrie and KD ran the screen and pop. So you have, again, options around everywhere. The dump off to DJ. You have the corner three from Joe Harris. Kick it out to James Harden, who can go either put it up for a three or drive, right? And then you have KD still there. So again, it's all about the options, and it's just dangerous because you have three guys here who can do pretty much everything in Kyrie, KD, and James Harden on the offensive end. And then you add that with a rim runner like DeAndre, and then Joe Harris, who's a great knockdown shooter. So this play starts with Kevin Durant handling the ball, and DJ is going to set the screen, right? Going to come down, set a mid screen. And then Russell Westbrook comes over to kind of stop KD from continuing the play. Well, again, let's just say that instead of TLC right here, that this is Harden, right? Harden gets a wide open three. One he didn't get too much of in Houston, so he can get a wide open three, or then he has the whole lane that he can drive into, and then you can just play off of Thomas Bryant. But if Thomas Bryant sticks with DJ, Harden goes to the rim, or if Rui Hachimura comes down, he can kick out to Kyrie, or if Thomas Bryant comes up to help him, then he has the lob to DeAndre, right? So a lot of options, even just off of that. But the others, right? Russell Westbrook, who's here, is going to be less likely to come stop KD if this is James Harden, right? So if Harden is here, Russ, who comes down, right, might end up just staying up there. Then KD has a mismatch. He can continue to drive off of that DeAndre Jordan screen, or he can pull it out, right? He can come back out here and then just play, right? He has a mismatch with Bradley Beal guarding him. Bradley Beal's not a bad defender by any means, but Durant with his size can do what he wants. Can either rise up for a three or just again pull it out, go ISO, and then drive. So options there. And Kyrie's not even fully involved in like the strong side action, but again, you have Kyrie on the weak side. Depending on what KD and James Harden do up here, if they can get Rui's attention, they can 100% get Kyrie a shot. Another way they could do that, though, is if, let's say, right, Russ does help down like he does here, and Denny comes out and, rotates. Then you have Joe Harris, who's actually not in the picture here, but you can kick it to him, right? He's right there. You can swing it to Joe Harris, and Joe Harris then has a wide open shot, right? He'd be right there. And then again, if Rui comes up, then you swing it to Kyrie. So the amount of just wide open shots this team's going to be able to get is actually super scary. All right, so this is going to be a simple pick and roll between Kyrie and Jared Allen. As he got traded for this video's sake, we'll say that that's DeAndre Jordan, right? Great pass by Kyrie Irving here, and then he has the, DeAndre Jordan here, or Jared Allen in this case, would have the wide open dunk. But again, instead of Landry Shamet, who's a solid player, he can knock down the open threes, but if this is Harden, right, then this creates even more problems. Because if Bertans was there earlier, or if it's like an elite shot blocker or someone that's just better than Gobert, Jared Allen might, you could probably force DJ, to go to the free throw line or make the extra pass. But if it's Harden here, the help defender has a really tough decision, right? Again, you can go stop the dunk, which you want to do, but then, someone's going to have to rotate to Harden. And Harden, again, would have a wide open three. Or like we said before, if he doesn't want to be someone that just takes wide open threes, he can still attack off of the movement, right? So teams like to trap Harden to get the ball away from him, right? And this is going back to D'Antoni and Harden days. You see here, Anthony Davis is going to leave his man to just get the ball out of Harden's hand. And Russ is going to have a wide open lane to the rim. If this was the Nets, then you probably are looking at this being KD. So Danny Green can't step in here, right? He has to stay glued here because you don't want to give KD a wide open three, which means Kyrie then has all this space to play with, right? That's a lot of space for Kyrie to be able to drive. And then if this is, again, Covington coming up. Ideally, you want KD a little bit higher, but then you still have Joe Harris, right? And then you can have shooter over here being either Jeff Green or TLC. Um, and you play a little bit small, but you just have so much offensive firepower because if you're trying to still take the ball out of Harden's hand, then someone's gonna be open. And Jeff Green's a very capable knockdown shooter. So is TLC, and Joe Harris, as we talked about, a knockdown shooter. And then KD and Kyrie are some of the best offensive players in the world. So teams are gonna have to make a decision. Do we want to still take the ball out of Harden's hand? If that's the case, then Kyrie in this case, in a play like this, or guys like TLC, Jeff Green, and Joe Harris are going to get wide open looks. Because KD is still a guy that you want to leave open the least, right? And no, Kyrie is still really good, but KD you don't want to see go off. And I think teams are still going to try to stop Harden to a degree, and maybe it becomes kind of all right. Let's make Kyrie beat us thing. Which look, Kyrie can still beat you on any given night, drop 50. But I think that's how teams might play it, at least at the beginning. Because if that's not the case, then you have to go one on one versus Harden, and he's shown, and we haven't, we don't fully know how he himself as an individual player will play on Brooklyn. But if he's bought into the system, he's going to make the right plays, and whether that's if it's going one on one and getting himself a basket, getting to the line, um, that's almost unstoppable as we've seen, or he's just going to draw attention and get it to the right guys. So the amount of the trouble it presents for defenses, because again, if you want to stop Harden, you usually have to go trap him, get the ball out of his hands. But if you do that, guys like Kyrie, guys like KD, Jeff Green, TLC, Joe Harris, they're gonna get open looks. So this is just a snapshot of an offensive play game Houston had against Boston. Um, Look at where the defense is though, right? The Houston has, this is when they were playing the small ball lineup. Granted, Russell Westbrook isn't a shooter. They have Daniel House, Covington, PJ Tucker who can all knock it down. So the Celtics defense is really just nowhere to be found in the paint. They're all playing 5 out. And, let's say again, if this is the Nets, you can have, Harris in the corner. You can probably have, you can have KD on the weak side. Or you could actually have, you can have this be Kyrie, KD with the space up top, and then maybe Jeff Green, right? Where people go is kind of up to interpretation, and they can just kind of free ball it. But again, if let's say they run that small ball lineup, right? You can't leave Harris wide open. You can't leave Kyrie wide open. Don't want to leave Jeff Green open, although that's the guy you probably choose to take, leave open if you must. And then KD up top, you're not definitely going to not leave him open. And if that's the case, then James Harden, we talked about before, if you don't get the ball out of his hands, then he shows you why, people have been doubling and trapping him, because you give him all the paint and he's unstoppable, right? You can put any defender in the league. The way the game is called now, the way, how, crafty offensive players are and how just athletic, strong, good they are, skilled they are, it's very difficult to stop a player one-on-one. Even when you look at guys who are elite defenders, some of the scheming does help them. It's team defense is still a big part of stopping a superstar. It's just so hard to stop a superstar one-on-one time and time again. So if the Nets run a situation like this, a lineup like this, you just have to pick your poison. Again, Jeff Green is probably the guy you leave open, but again, you leave him open 20 times a game. I mean, he's still going to knock, a decent amount of shots. And, that's whether, even if this is KD or Kyrie, right? If this is the lineup they run out there, and I just have, we just assume that this is going to be because this is what the picture we're looking at. And Harden's probably the least likely, or the player we've seen the least take catch and shoot threes and playing off the ball out of the 3 stars. But again, if he buys in, and this is KD or Kyrie with the ball, same exact principle. You just can't stop him one-on-one. And if there's nobody at the paint, then it's over. The best case scenario you're looking at is a foul, right? It's going to be very difficult. And at that point, like, you just kind of have pray and hope they miss, because a lot of times superstars, you go one on one with no help, they're going to be able to get to their spot and get the shot they want. Whether they make it or not is more so just up to them. So this is a play. It's actually Houston against the Lakers, who the Nets will probably have to be in the finals. That's my pick, and I think a lot of people's picks to come out of the West right now. They're playing pretty well, but the Nets ran the 11th most pick and rolls in the league, so they may end up with a decent amount of mismatches when the defense switches. When that happens, KD and Kyrie are already great at breaking their man down for a score or a shot for a teammate, but Harden just takes it to, again, the next level. Harden can exploit matchups for himself or find guys. Here you see Harden being matched up with AD, who's a good defender, but even at that, Harden's able to get just right past AD right here. They have to bring the help, and again, breaks the defense down. You look at the amount of guys that are swarming to stop James Harden right here, right? AD was the initial defender. LeBron had to step in and help a bit. Danny Green comes all the way over, and then now you have I think this is KCP or Rondo scrambling, right? So now this guy has to cover really two guys, and they're not close to each other, so that's really difficult, right? And again, if this is, you can either have this be Joe Harris or a KD or a Jeff Green or a Kyrie, and whichever one that isn't, then you just put one of them here, and just the spacing they can just create off of these guys. One, just off of their isolation power. Like, even if they didn't run a lot of plays, the amount they would score is going to be high, because these are all guys who are great individual talents. But with, you know, tinkering with the lineups like Mike D'Antoni did in Houston with the small ball lineup with the 5 out like we just looked at, or just running simple pick and rolls, right? The one we looked at first, the pick and roll, where you just create options for a dump down for DeAndre Jordan, and I think he's going to have a lot of options, right, with the amount of wing attention that these players are gonna garner. And then you have Joe Harris, who's a great shooter on the weak side, and we keep talking about. I think he's just going to have a field day, and then once you have that, then it's just like, then you just have these guys just make the right decisions. It still kind of relies on them buying into the system and kind of sacrificing a little bit, but yeah, the individual talent along with Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni, I think is going to cause just defenses so much trouble. And you look at the spacing they get on these, along with the shooters they have. Besides Joe Harris, nobody's like knocked down. But I mean, Jeff Green, TLC. These are all guys who've shown that they can knock down the open ones. And then even when things break down, right, end of shot clock, end of games, these are three guys who are used to being the alpha, used to being the guy. And but Kyrie, KD, even James Harden, besides the playoffs for the most part, have had clutch moments. And it's going to be tough to stop. But we can't ignore the negatives or the possible holes for this team. One, the Nets already averaged the sixth most turnovers, and they're adding James Harden, who, one, they have to incorporate, and two, is already the third league leader in turnovers per game. And that could hurt them in points given up off of turnovers, which, if you've watched their video from Tuesday about their defense, they already have a problem with. The defense has been questionable overall. And granted, they are top 10 in defensive rating and opponents' field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. They do still struggle a lot with points in the paint and second chance points and just rebounding. DeAndre Jordan isn't the rim protector or rebounder he once used to be. Not bad by any means, but just isn't what he used to be. Kevin Durant might be one of, if not the best defender they have, which is saying something. And he's made strides in his defense, but for a championship contending team, might be a little concerning. I do think they need a little bit more defense and depth if possible. Because, most NBA teams, and there are some exceptions, but most NBA teams that win the finals are top 10 in both offense and defense. So, that is something to keep an eye on. I do think that this offense might just be so good that they could get away with a defense that's in the 15 to 20 range. As long as they don't drop to like bottom 10 in the league, I do think they will be fine. I'm excited and interested to see the things that Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni do with this offense. There's obviously still questions about Kyrie. When's he going to come back? There's reports saying he's furious with the Nets. There's reports saying he's excited to come back. Who really knows? KD hasn't really commented on the trade. Last night after the game against the Knicks on ESPN, he said he wasn't going to comment until the trade went official. So a lot going on. I know these players are all, have had their ups and downs in terms of, how they handle the media and, just kind of not necessarily egos, but just kind of drama around teammates. So, definitely something to keep an eye on. That'll do it for today. Thanks again for watching. And please, it'd mean a lot if you could subscribe. We really are trying to ramp things up, and every follow means a lot. Follow our social media pages as well. Links will be in the description below. And we're following people back for a limited time. So go ahead and do that. Thanks again, and we will see you guys soon. Peace.